I'm not.
Okay.
This is Douglas Noble, and I'm here today in Kansas City, Missouri for the NABWMC History and Legacy Project, and we are interviewing Regis D'Angelini of Philadelphia and Gavin Morrow Hall, now of San Francisco, formerly of New York and Los Angeles. Welcome to the project.
Thank you, Douglas.
Regis has been a member of Philadelphia for some years and is the relatively recent author of the definitive history of the chapter, and also an early and important participant in this project. Gavin has been in the NA longer than most of us can count. He is today celebrating a birthday, but we're not allowed to tell which number, except that when he first joined the LA chapter many years ago, he was almost underage. Anyway, I think this is his 20th consecutive convention. He was formerly on the NA board 2 different times, one in the mid-'80s and one in the late 90s.
Yeah, 95 to 96.
Anyway, we're going to start this off by asking questions about your local chapter involvement, and we'll start with Gavin since you've been around even longer. So what was your first contact with CWMC? Where did it occur? Why? What were your reactions?
I was 20 years old. I was in Los Angeles, and it was a art show that I was attending, and Vero Leach approached me. He said, "Have you heard of Black and White Men Together?" And I said, "No, I have not heard of the organization." And he mentioned they have Saturday night conscience-raising groups. And the next Saturday, I went over to, I want to say it was the Center on Hyperion, but there was some community group that NABWMC met on Hyperion Avenue, which is in Silver Lake of Los Angeles. And Charles Stewart, who at the time I believe was the International Association co-chair, was leading a discussion on racism within the gay and lesbian community. And since I have done anti-oppression work and talked about issues of racism and sexism through projects that I was involved with in high school and in college, that it was like, wow, here's an organization. There were these men that were all talking about issues of things that matter to me. And I also thought Charles Stewart was kind of cute too. Little did I know I had no chance, but but it was a really good conversation. And then after that wrap, we all went out to some coffee shop afterwards, and I was really impressed about the dialogue. And it also allowed me to come back, actually. It was something that was really quite nice to come back to. I think me being 20, Black White Men Together was a place for me to be gay. I was out, but not with a capital O. But I couldn't go to bars or clubs, and really had no idea what bars and clubs to go to. But every weekend, I was allowed to meet with other gay and bisexual men in Los Angeles and talk and socialize, and that was the big draw for me there.
Had you been involved in any interracial situations, either socially or organizationally, before that?
Socially, I had dated, actually, at the time I became involved in the organization, I was actually dating more black men than white men, although I guess the whole interracial dynamic through this camp that I went to called Brotherhood USA, which dealt with issues of racism and sexism and homophobia, that was definitely a multicultural group in terms of an purely black and white or interracial discussion. Not the time I got involved with CWMC. That was in the gay community.
What was the first event that you went to? Was it a consciousness raising?
Consciousness raising. It was late September 1982.
And what was it like? I mean, what was your first impression, if you remember?
I remember being somewhat intimidated because you walk in and there's this room full of people and people on the floor and in chairs, so I was kind of nervous at the moment. But then, as I said, they were talking about issues, racism in the gay community. I remember that topic to this day. I remember exactly where Charles Stewart was sitting and leading this wonderful discussion. I have no idea what the discussion was, who said what, but I was very much impressed with the level of dialogue. There seemed to be some men who actually seemed to care about issues of racism within the gay and lesbian community. And Charles, as always, is the brilliant facilitator, challenging people, following up with people on their stuff, and it was, it felt comfortable. As comfortable as being 20 and being in a room full of a lot of other people for the first time, but the social activity afterwards, going to the Crest coffee shop and just sitting there and being very social with people, was just fun. I definitely thought that I'd be back the next week, just to check it out, and yeah. So.
Well, how did your involvement with the local chapter evolve from that point?
Interesting. I got a phone call from Scott Provencher, who was the membership chair or whatever. He called to make sure I had a good time, and we became good friends. And I kept on coming back, and I forget the exact order of things, but at some point in time in December, Scott needed a roommate. And so then I was living across the hallway from my stepfather, and so I kind of made the leap to kind of move into my own little place and supposedly save money. And then quite quickly thereafter, I became involved with what's it called, the education committee. We had an education committee, and I would go to those committee meetings on a regular basis. And I don't know if I was ever chair of the education committee, but we would plan these activities with Howard Erickson and Colin Gibson, Warren Timoney, who was, I think, the local co-chair. I remember thinking Warren Timoney was just a god. He was just amazing.
And the social committee was where we first met, I think, the next May, because you were on the committee and I attended a meeting. I think John Peterson was the chair of the committee.
John Peterson. And then the Saturday night raps or consciousness raising sessions, which was the staple of my life. I mean, they really were. Every Saturday night, I knew exactly at the clock. I knew that I had to be at the center at the Crest coffee shop or wherever we decided to meet. I knew that was the place that I wanted to be. And from going there, and then they would advertise, a Zodiac party, which is, they used to have these monthly parties, and if it was your month, or your Zodiac month, you got in for free. And so, being a little struggling student, that I would wait for the July party, because that means I saved $2 off that. I saved $2 off of the fee, but that was quite fun. Going to the parties and just being very, very social. I think also living with Scott Provencher, who was like a membership chair, really integrated me into the organization very quickly because he was having meetings at his house. I was going to steering committee meetings just to check out steering committee meetings for the sake of it. And also I think early on, I met Colin Gibson, who I think was running for co-chair the next year, and we dated briefly. And I forgot what committee, all the committees kind of jive together, but that also allowed me to become more involved with kind of the social aspect of the organization as well.
Then at some point in that next few months, the meetings moved from what was the place called on Hyperion? I forget.
Yes,
because I was never there, but it moved over to the center in Hollywood. Right? Yeah.
And then I think at some point in time, there was a time when you could volunteer to lead a rap discussion, and then I think at some point in time I volunteered to be co-chair of the rap committee, or the consciousness raising committee, which meant that it was kind of institutionalized. I was going to be there every Saturday night, and I think I really did hone some skills in facilitation, which just serves me well to this day. But just to look at a room, and in many ways it really just helped me kind of get over stage fright when I have to lead workshops and discussions. But a topic would be decided, or as a co-chair, we were charged with coming and trying to decide a topic for the evening, and take a vote, and we split groups, and that was quite fun too, because I got a chance to size up different people in the organization, and I had a chance to express my thoughts and my worldview, etc. And it was great fun. It was really good fun.
Now those topics ranged all over the lot, from the more serious to the less.
Sexual, yes. I remember my friend Nick Bucci proposed the topic was one, how I like to get fucked and why. I don't remember, he just kind of threw it out there, and there was a big laugh, but when we took the vote, it won. And I'm not even sure if I facilitated that one, but I remember and we also have wonderful topics dealing with issues of racism. I remember Charles Stewart led a discussion that was black men and white men. Black men like to be in charge outside the bedroom, black men in charge in the bedroom, and everyone kind of went, woo! And of course everyone went there. And so it was those very, Charles Stewart also raised an issue of like, should the National Association be disbanded at some point in time? So there was sometimes very, very fun, silly conversations, but there were also a lot of substantive conversations about the direction not only within our lives, like black men being perceived as being in charge in the bedroom, but having lack of power outside the bedroom, to we all come into this organization called NABWMT or IABWMT at one point in time, and why does it exist?
Well, when you were facilitating or participating in raps on racism, how did you notice that? I mean, were those topics in which people opened up easily, or was there a reluctance, or how did those go? Because a lot of times in the history of this organization, there's been a lot of reluctance for people to really be real on subjects like that. What's your recollection of those in L.A.?
Yeah, honestly, I perceive that people opened up to a certain degree. I remember, and people were very open to hearing criticism. I remember a couple of my friends and I were talking after discussion, and I was aware of the kind of subtle racism that happened and assumptions that happened within the organization, and someone had spoken to me, and maybe someone else who was probably in their early 20s, and said, "You were so articulate." And of course, it was meant as a compliment. It was a compliment, obviously, in hindsight. But I remember thinking, well, duh, what am I supposed to say? How much is 1 plus 1? I mean, what do they expect out of people who have these organizations who attend BWMT?
Was there some implication that they found a young black man to be articulate to be surprising?
To be surprising. And also, I don't know if I was aware of it as much then at that time, but very quickly thereafter, I remember talking to several people who said that they may like black men, but in terms of having conversations outside of the bedroom, that sounds somewhat limited, which always raised the question to me, then why date? But which, I mean, always seemed crazy, but Lord knows there have been many folks in organizations who have perceived dating purely as just dating and being sexual. But I was always amazed at those conversations. Also, the need that people were so comfortable, maybe as a facilitator. I remember one person said to me after a discussion, even though I'm attracted to black and Latino, they cause so much of the crime. I remember just escalating with his indignation that he felt comfortable saying that. He was dead serious. He was dead serious. And having an intellectual conversation with him about white collar crime, but even symptoms of crime, kind of went way beyond that. And someone's ashamed. I was hoping we'd have a date that evening, but
well, at least he was being honest.
He was being honest, and that was cool. But my dating agenda was spoiled for the evening. So.
Did you attend the steering committee meetings in those days?
I most certainly did. I was as part of one of the co-chairs of the committee. For the consciousness raising committee, I attended, and also I attended just as a interested member, I think, before I became on the committee, involved in the committee.
And what were those like? I mean, where were they held?
They were held, for the most part, on BWMT Hill. And BWMT Hill was this hill that housed Warren Timmy and Steve Durrell. Warren was the co-chair when I first joined, and Steve Durrell was his partner. Reddy Brock owned, I think, many of the houses on the hill. We had Colin Gibson and John Henderson, I want to say. Will Henderson, who all lived in this kind of housing apartment complex, which had a great effect overlooking a Dodger Stadium, one of the best teams in the Western League, not as good as San Francisco, Doug. And then,
now, but not then.
I used to go to many Dodger games too, so and they had this little attic, and the BWMT office was in this attic right above Steve and Warren's home. I remember they seem very organized. This is my first meeting at all, any type of other than planning a discussion at a camp. And so they all start off 7:30 on the first Monday of the month. We do a little committee report, blah, blah, blah. I forget that so much. Sometimes they were really charged in terms of the heart and core, where we want to be, who do we align ourselves with. We aligned with GLUE, which is the Gay and Lesbian Latinos Unidos. There was a group called MEGLE, which I became very much involved with, the Multicultural Ethnic Gay Lesbian Exchange,
Asian Pacific Lesbians and Gays.
Yeah, APLG, Asian Pacific Lesbians and Gays. So it means like that, but we also had kind of basic journal laundry list of what topics we're going to discuss. Afterwards, though, which I realized how things actually happen in real life. Afterwards, a lot of us would retreat to Colin's house, and we would have Colin was a big old bourbon drinker. Bourbon or red wine would be at Colin's house, and everyone was in, and joints. Amazing. I don't know if I'm just older or then, but it seemed like everyone got high. So you had your meeting, and then everyone would have either a joint or a drink, etc. And that's actually when you kind of like debriefed and kind of made plans for the next year committee meeting. I remember them being very serious. I mean, that was a staple. People came to me prepared always. It wasn't a thing that people did. There was a real commitment to coming to a steering committee meeting. And when I think back, I'm missing from a lot of organizations, but I remember the real dedication that folks had. It was a place that, like the rap for me on Saturday night, people knew on that first Monday of the month, that's where people were going to be.
Now, at some point, you got involved in the National.
Yes, I started somewhere. I forget how, but I heard about Michael Smith, and Michael Smith and I started corresponding with each other, and he tried to start us to get me to go to the Columbus Convention in '83, and I was making $4.50 or $5 an hour, and I just could not see myself spending $300 on a plane ticket to go to Columbus and take a week off of work. But I was darn sure I was going to go next year, and I remember the following year and had corresponded with Tim Wilson, who was the co-chair then, as well as Billy Jones, who was co-chair as well. And I think at some point I had been elected. It wasn't NA rep. It was NA rep then, the National Association rep or IA rep, to the House of Delegates of NAWMT. And
From the chapter.
From the chapter. And became wonderful correspondence with Tim Wilson and Billy Jones, Reed Leonard as well, and Charles Stewart, who was part of the local chapter. So you get this mailing. One of my funny comments was Tim had sent out some report that he wanted all the reps to sign in his trademark red ink. Gavin, I'm very disappointed that I have not gotten your response yet. And of course, I quickly, called him up and sent the information, and I still teased Tim to very good. So trademark red pen, and he had not gotten my report. But the next year at the Atlanta Convention, which is my first convention, after flying in, taking the red eye after Gay Pride, was introduced to the National Association at a conference. And I recall walking into this room, dead tired. This huge room, and you had people I'd heard about. I'd heard about the James Credos and the John Bushes, as well as I had met Tim before or not, and the Ken Allens. And there were two things about that first NA board meeting or IA board meeting. One was the change to go from IA to NA. Should we actually go from an international association of black and white men together to a national association? And which I think was philosophical, but John Bush said we were losing money. And I think the first time, just the force of John Bush's personality and changing the debate. The other key memory of
Excuse me, but why were we losing money?
Because many organizations would not give money to an international association, would only give money to a national organization. So many charitable organizations gave money to something that was U.S.-based or was national. But the moment you went beyond that, it was perceived that we'd be losing money. The other debate but it was somewhat a given that Melvin Ross, who was the one person who was slated to be co-chair, was going to be co-chair. And I remember after 2 days of discussions and debates, right before the nominations were to be closed, John Bush put his name in for co-chair. And I remember the ripple, you can see the effect that it had on the group. It was rumblings, yes and no, and there was kind of, I want to say, gasp at somebody. And John Bush went on to become co-chair. And I just remember that caused a whole lot of discussion. It was a good choice, though.
So there was a contested election?
Yeah, those were, yes.
My God.
Yeah, those were days when, which as Doug knows, and I always support the contested elections. It offers people a choice. But yeah, it went from having one person who was going to be co-chair to offering the organization a choice of who was going to be co-chair. And I was not as involved with the elections committee as I would be later on, but I understood John Bush won that election handily.
Well, now the following year, 1985, the venture was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And if I can retrace, at that time there was no there was no board of directors.
There was no board of directors.
There were just 4 officers, and I believe that each chapter delegation was in charge of some function. Is that right?
I'm sorry, each.
Well, you were a delegate in '85,
right.
And I recall as you attempted to get me to be a co-delegate.
Yes.
You told me that our chapter delegation, Los Angeles, was in charge of running elections. Is that right?
Yeah, we were in charge of running elections, or that was one of the duties that I had agreed to from Tim or John or whatever. I forget how we did, but yes, that's how you and I first started working together.
And what happened at that convention?
See, Doug is trying to bait me here, and I know where he wants to go. So what happened there?
No, I want to hear in your words.
Okay, what happened there happened almost as we left Atlanta, to be honest with you, that there was a discussion as to whether the current structure was working. And it was perceived that having 2 volunteers from each chapter, and we had about 25 chapters, that was working, and there was a perception that it was not working, that the work of the National Association was not getting done. It was then presented at the 85 House of Delegates to actually create a board of directors who would be charged primarily with the day-to-day running of the organization. And the board of directors would be elected from the House of Delegates, but you would have this leadership body and it's a very complicated structure where you only have, at the time there was a lot of suspicion and mistrust about different regions of the country, and so it was very interesting complex. We could only have 2 or 3 directors from each region, and we had 3 or 4 regions across the country, and you had racial, you could only have like 1 black person from the West Coast, and it was very complicated, as I recall. But I remember, and the House of Delegates in 85 decided to have a board of directors.
And what happened then?
The rest has been having board of directors since then.
And what was your role?
My role initially was I was running the elections committee. I was kind of running it. I was serving with you, Doug, on the elections committee, and in charge of getting people to run for board of directors, as well as officers. I recall there were some officers who were also elected in '85. And so in the midst of all this, Doug, Del Pasquini, who passed away a week later, suggested that I run, and I had thought about it, but I ran, but I wanted to try and make sure that some of my responsibilities as running the elections committee had been done. So I then decided but there was a caveat that you had to resign from the elections because people obviously who were running for elections couldn't be counting the election results. This was done in California, not in Florida, so if we had had Supreme Court, we might have had a different election result. But and so I resigned, leaving Douglas to be in charge of the elections. Is that when you started working in politics?
No, it's Francis Gibson.
Francis, oh my God.
So do you remember how many people were elected and how many ran on that election?
I know we either had 12 or 16 people who were elected. I'm going to say 12 people were elected.
Yeah, 12 were elected.
12 were elected.
So quite a few more
and we
than
had
that
like
ran.
25 or 28 people who ran. And that was exciting, actually. We had people from all across the country. Most chapters had at least one person who were running. There was some really only have maybe 2 people from each chapter who could be elected, but any number could run. So we had people from like Reverend Jean-Marie from New York City, Wendell Roberson from Chicago at the time, I think. But he's so many different chapters. People from all across the country. It was really exciting. I mean, I remember that there was a feeling of just joy of seeing so many people who chose to actually run. If people, they all came there with their stuff. Some people came saying, "I used to be this," but you also saw a lot of people who were quite active in Black gay organizing across the country, whether through BWMT or externally of BWMT, who really wanted to be part of that discussion. And you also have wonderful people like Erwin Rothenberg, who was elected at that point too, and was doing great stuff in Memphis. That was a good time. I was a happy memory.
So you were elected?
I was elected.
For what, a 2-year term?
I was elected for a 2-year term.
And you served that term, right?
I served that term, and then I was re-elected in 87 for a 1-year term. John Teamer, who later became co-chair, was on a 2-year term from the West Coast. That's right, yeah. And someone had resigned. I forgot, someone from the West Coast had resigned. So I then ran. I got the 1-year term. Teamer got the 2-year term. So I served from 85 to 88.
So what type of work did you do on the board?
There were several things. One of the things I recall most, came back to be part of the elections committee in 1986, and that was quite exciting. That was like my big passion, was kind of looking at the politics. And what I did when I was coach of the elections committee, I really did believe in contesting elections, and also talking to people from across the country who was doing what in their chapter. And I want to say, and I think being parallel to this, I may have been involved. We all had board liaison duties, and at some point, I want to say I was doing some assessment for the organization, but I honestly forget. So I remember being very much aware of what was going on in different chapters, always. And so when I started running being coach of the elections committee, that I would call up people and say, well, what's going on in Philadelphia, what's going on in Chicago, whatever, and then get people to actually run for different elections. In 1986, we had 6 different people who ran for co-chair in 1986. And solicited people from former co-chairs, Billy Jones and Charles Stewart, had given phone calls, and Charles Stewart particularly gave a laundry list of people who he thought should run for both board and for co-chair. And I think it was wonderful. He had this reservoir of people and said, these are people. He didn't endorse all these people, but he was really dedicated to the discussion that these people would have. So you would have, I remember who was Melvin Ross, who lost in 84, was on the list, but so was the James Credo. And there were people who were external to the organization, or were still dealing with the organization, but had joined the chapter. At that time, they were eligible to run. And when it was all said and done, we had 6 candidates who ran. We had James Credo, Don Ransom, Melvin Ross, Ollie Lee Taylor, Tom Horn, and Mickey Fritchie from Chicago. And that was exciting. It was really, that